And with us now, the House Republican leader, John Boehner. Mr. Boehner, I know you want to get right in the middle of this. Do you have any thoughts on any of what you just heard?
I'm the Republican leader in the U.S. House, and I try to stay out of the business of the United States Senate, so I wish them their best.
But you have no advice?
I have no advice.
All right. I had a feeling you were going to say that. Let's talk about some of the other things that Senator Durbin talked about. He seemed to suggest, and it sometimes it was difficult to understand exactly where Senator Durbin was going this morning. He clearly was kind of keeping his own counsel about things. I had the impression that he was saying that the Senate may not be ready to repeal the Bush tax cuts on the rich, at least at this time.
I think in a time of great economic uncertainty, the last thing we want to do is raise taxes on anyone. And we're going to have enough difficulty trying to come to some bipartisan agreement on what this package could look like. And so I can assure you that raising taxes is not likely to be a part of this package.
You think you're confident in saying that because Nancy Pelosi says it's got to be, and she's the House Speaker.
She's got a very powerful position, and she's got a lot to say about what this package will look like. But we had a good meeting with the President-elect earlier this week, House and Senate Republican and Democrat leaders. The President-elect made it clear that he wants our input, he wants our advice. So I've taken him at his word, because I think he's sincere about this. And he understands that the economic uncertainty in the country is severe, and the anxiety in the country is at a very high level. And so he wants to work with us. I've appointed Eric Cantor, our #2 leader, to develop a working group so that we can help develop ideas that we can share with the President-elect.
Well, you said you have a little problem. It's difficult to know what this package is going to look like. Certainly it's enormous. Now, Speaker Pelosi says she's going to keep you in session unless you get it done in early February before the congressional recess. Do you think it can get done by then? Should it get done by then?
I think it needs to be finished in the Congress and on the President's desk as quickly as possible. The country needs it. American families and small businesses are suffering. We need to do this quickly, but we need to do it in a responsible way. And whether we can do it in a responsible way that quickly is unknown. Earlier this week, I thought surely we could have it to the President's desk by the middle of February.
But you're not sure now.
But as I begin to hear comments from my Democrat colleagues in the House and Senate, they're raising real questions. Dave Obey, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, a Democrat from Wisconsin, said, I don't know how we can spend this much money responsibly in such a short period of time. And then you see Kent Conrad, senator from North Dakota, chairman of the Budget Committee in the Senate, John Spratt, chairman of the Budget Committee in the House, expressing concerns that, the spending here needs to be temporary and that we have a budget deficit that we need to be concerned about. And I think a lot of members of Congress on both sides of the aisle know that we can't borrow and spend our way to prosperity, that we can't bury our kids and their kids under a mountain of debt. And so what is responsible? That'll be the you'll hear a lot about in the coming weeks.
Well, let me just ask you this. How do you think this package ought to look? Already we're seeing the Democrats, a lot of Democrats saying too many tax cuts in this thing. There needs to be some more spending, but maybe not the tax cuts, some of them anyway, that Barack Obama has outlined. What do you think are the key parts of this package that need to be?
Well, I think clearly the most important part is allowing American families and small businesses to keep more of what they earn. If we allow them to keep more of what they earn, they're gonna spend it, they're gonna save it, they're gonna invest it, all of which is good for the economy, and it can begin immediately. We don't have to wait for some government program to work or some government check to show up. We can do it quickly. And so the bigger point here is what's going to be in the package. I don't know. I haven't seen it. No one's seen it. There's been a lot of talk around town, but nobody's really seen this package. And until we do, it's hard to comment on it. But having said that, we want to lower taxes on middle-class American families, small businesses. On the other side of the coin, most Americans are a little skeptical about government spending. And so why couldn't we tax less and spend less? as we put this package together. It's not being talked about today, but infrastructure, I think there's a place for infrastructure. But what kind of infrastructure? Infrastructure to widen highways, to ease congestion for American families? Is it to build some buildings that are necessary? But if we're talking about beautification projects, or we're talking about bike paths, Americans are not going to look very kindly on this.
Now, what about releasing the rest of these emergency funds, the $750 billion that the last Congress approved, the emergency funds, the so-called TARP program? Should the rest of that money be released? Is about $300 billion there.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I voted for the economic rescue package. I clearly thought it was necessary. I've certainly raised a lot of concerns over the last several months about how it was spent. And the TARP board that we set up in the legislation to oversee this came out with a report late last week that was highly critical of the Treasury Department, the way they've proceeded. And I think until there's a demonstrated need in our economy and a plan to address that need, I think it would be irresponsible for Congress to release the additional money. And I frankly think there are Democrats and Republicans alike who have great concerns about this.
Do you think at this point there are the votes to keep those funds from being released?
What will happen is that there's a bill that will move through Congress that was required under this bill, where Congress can pass a resolution of disapproval, but it's subject to be vetoed by the president. And so the president's going to have to hold a third of the Senate or a third of the House, have them in favor of this, if the money is going to be released. And at this point, I think that's going to be a pretty tough sell.
All right. Mr. Boehner, thank you very much. We'll look forward to talking to you this year. There'll be a lot to talk about.
There certainly will be.